Welcome to the Mrs. Are Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. We are live. It's Tuesday, and I can't say it's Tuesday during the day or whatever because for Peter, he's in Scotland. It's really late, and then Tel is a couple of time zones west of me, in the United States. So we're covering like half of the world right now. But your first podcast for both of you, Tel. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Pretty good. Excited.
Cool. Peter, you were in so many of the 32 GM mock drafts that we did. And I know that you also did one with Jolene um, at the end of the year. It is great to see you on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I've been enjoying contributing, watching, and learning from all the draft professors as well. So it's nice to be on the other side of it, as you say, and get to contribute.
So the theme for today is the wide receiver class of the 2026 NFL draft. And I reached out to Peter and Tel. It may have been May, but we'll call it June so I can be factually correct. And I said, would you like to come on a podcast in August and talk about the wide receivers? And oh, by the way, here's the list of 70 plus players that we have. And then that's how this entire thing got put together. So Peter, what was your reaction to the list? Like when you were going through the whatever number of players that were on that list, what was your reaction as you were going through?
I was first of all, I was excited because I was like, looking forward to coming on the podcast with you guys. But yeah, I was aware of how much of a task it was going to be. And to be fair, I enjoy the fact that there's such variety on the list, so that it doesn't feel too repetitive or anything like that when you've got such a wide range of players to have a look at, I think.
Tel, how about you? What was your reaction to like the players you were watching on the list? Could you maybe summarize it, whether you want to drop player names or not? What's your feeling
Yeah.
going into the year for the wide receiver group?
I actually I went to watch the list, and I mean it was a large list, and just getting film on guys that don't have a lot of play time or don't even maybe they had some play time, but they had 150 yards on the season. And it's like, all right, well, how can I evaluate this and do the best I can off what we have of that sample size so far? But I mean, I came away with some guys that, there's some guys that are definitely not household names. And then I'm like, okay, I've never heard of this person and I'm intrigued. And then there's some guys I've heard of and I'm like, I don't see it. But I mean, I think it's kind of all over the place with me, with my list and my tiers in it. And there's players all over the place. I feel there's a plethora of kind of receivers. Any kind of receiver you like, there's probably one in this draft.
So Tel, who was one of the players that you didn't have on your initial list, but was on the list that was given and kind of popped off and said, hey, I like this guy and glad that I learned that he existed?
Okay. Okay. So two that popped off to me, they're in my my tier where I say they have strengths, but I think they need to make a leap of some sort. One is I never heard of Chris. I never watched Chris Bell from Louisville. And I watched him and I'm like, okay, there's something to this guy. There's I don't watch Louisville. It's not a team that comes on my screen a lot. I don't watch live college as much as I used to because I also coach at the high school level. So we're busy all day, every day. But when I watched Chris Bell, it was definitely someone that, like I said, I never heard of him. And then I turned on the tape. First thing I noticed how large he is. And he's built like a large running back. I mean, he's bigger than a lot of running backs. And he was a player that popped off to me that I'm like, okay, I would really like to see if he takes another step with production and kind of how he's used. And then another one was this one was way out there. One of the first players I watched, but I thought he was fun. But it's a lower level competition, and that's Corey Rucker out of Arkansas State. He was he was one of the first 5 people I watched, I believe. But I mean, he's at Arkansas State, so his competition hasn't been great all the time. But he kind of gave me, which this is going to invoke a name that hasn't been successful in the league, and I wasn't high on this person coming out, was like Malachi Corley. He kind of evoked he's a little bit stockier of a receiver who weighs about 215 at 6 foot. He plays strong, but he's fast and he's really hard to get down after he gets the ball. But like Malachi Corley, his route running is very raw, in my opinion. He has concentration drops. I don't think he has bad hands. I think he wants to run up field. He wants to start that yak before he gets the ball, and it causes him to drop the ball, but it happens enough that it's a problem. And then he's older. I mean, I think he's a 6-year player or something like that. And, when you are a raw prospect with that much age on you, it's not always a good combo.
So Chris Bell from Louisville, you are not the first one to bring that name up on this channel. Peter, what did you think of Chris Bell from Louisville?
I like Chris Bell. Certainly at Louisville, he's got just such a great athlete. He's got the size, as you mentioned. He's got elite pace as well, which is really helpful. And he's got the kind of stop-start, change of direction ability as well, which not many who are that well built tend to have. I think he's one that would maybe need another leap this year. I think, was it Ja'Cory Brooks was maybe with them last year. So with him gone, potentially could get more targets, playing a slightly bigger role as well. Excited to see what comes for him this year, because he's certainly someone that all the tools are there that an NFL team could look at him, and if he's got the production to fall back on, there's definitely plenty to work with.
At Louisville now, he has a better quarterback than was at Louisville last year. Better. There's a good quarterback in Louisville this year. I think that's the right way to say that, right? We can't be giving Miller Moss 2nd-round grades yet.
Not quite yet. Personally, there were maybe those who do, but yeah.
No, I'm not there either on Miller Moss. Not right now.
So Peter, anybody that was, let's say, a new name for you that was on that big list, and you were happy that you were turned on to the player?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not too uncommon now. I'm seeing it pop up all over the place, I suppose. But Bryce Lance was one. Also, North Dakota State I hadn't seen too much of, and I'm very much on the hype train. He's got the size, 6'3", kind of over 200 pounds. Really good ball tracking and nice hands. Really nice hands, and I'd like to see him become a bit more physical because he's got that size. I'd like to see him use it, maybe try to kind of box out when these contested catches. But I think there's a lot to work with there. The competition level is obviously a factor, but so much to like there. And that was an unexpected one for me because I watched him quite early in the process, and I must admit I wasn't expecting too much at that point. But yeah, very much on the hype train. I know that a few of the draft professors are very keen on their Bryce Lance. So I'm another one to add to the list, definitely.
Yeah, Trevor Sycamore quoted Anthony Russo in a tweet on Bryce Lance and called him out on their podcast. So yeah, there's at least one draft professor that has Bryce Lance as wide receiver 1.
I'm not quite all the way there. I definitely have him top 10, maybe pushing towards the top 5. But I definitely liked what I saw, and as I said, it was a surprise to me at the time because I was not going into that with any expectations really.
So, field stretchers. So, if an NFL team needs a receiver that can get downfield, who are some of your favorites from the watch list?
I like Eric Rivers, also moving to Georgia Tech. I watched his Florida international tape last year, and yeah, great hands, great feet. But it's his ball tracking downfield for me that really kind of set him apart and made me take notice. Again, I'd been watching that thinking, no, this guy's not bad. I like what I'm seeing so far. And then just a few of the deep balls, adjusting while the ball's in the air, taking difficult catches, and he's a bit lightweight, but if we're talking field stretchers, guys that potentially can have a real impact at the next level, maybe not your wide receiver 1, your wide receiver 2, but as a change of pace, I think that he's the one that could have a really interesting career ahead of him.
Yeah, I like Eric Rivers too. Like you said, I don't think he's a wide receiver 1, but he's high in my rankings because I think he could be like elite wide receiver 2. I mean, the speed and explosion that this guy brings to the field is almost next to none.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'd also put Chris Bell into that as well. I think that the kind of long strides can get away downfield really nicely.
Speaking of long strides, a player that I wouldn't say they're fast, but I have down as someone I think is a deep threat purely because of his body is Malachi Fields. I mean, you get that if that dude gets rolling and he stacks you, I mean, it's basically over.
Especially with the hands as well, he just doesn't drop any.
He doesn't.
Fields is also one of the better blocking wide receivers of the class too, correct?
Yes, and I've seen someone, I don't know if it was what podcast I was listening to, but they talked about how they thought Fields had issues with double catching it, but he never drops it. And I didn't see that double catch issue a lot, but I never see him drop the ball that often. And he's huge. I mean, he's one of the biggest receivers I feel like I've studied recently that I also liked. Because, I like big body receivers, but I've struggled lately to find one of this size that I like the film.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot that have got the traits there, and you want that next step. I'm sure we'll cover a lot of these guys later in the podcast, but there's a few that they've got the size, they've got flashes on their tape, but you just want to see it more consistently, maybe for a season, and then you'll think, right, this guy's right in the mix to be.
I have a tier where it's solely those players, which y'all did mention one already that I have on that list that I'm not quite as high on as y'all, but I want to see more from Lance. I want to see some more. I have him in that. I have him in that tier of there's a lot of potential, but I really want to see another level to his game because I think he is more of an athlete than a receiver, but that's not anything against his hands. I think his hands are great. He's a great athlete with great hands. I would just like to see a lot more nuance to his game as a receiver.
That's fair, I think. I just think that as well, it's potentially if there'd been a move this off season, step up to higher level, get kind of really improve your coaching at the wide receiver position as much as you possibly can, take in different systems and see if that maybe unlocks just kind of for me it's the final piece, whether it's that or it's just a next step. I think that could have been helpful. But even staying at North Dakota State, hopefully this year they'll find a few extra ways to use him that can maybe round out his draft profile a little bit.
Tel, who are some of the receivers that are in that tier of you need to see them play consistently this year to move up?
So the first two I'll mention. The first name I'll say is the most obvious one probably in the entire country, which is Nick Harbor. I don't know what there is to say. Most people know the story of Nick Harbor. I mean, he's huge, he's fast, but he doesn't have production. He lacks most things you need to be an actual good receiver. He's 6'5", 230 something. He has elite speed, elite explosion, but he seems so unnatural running, in my opinion, as a receiver. And his change of direction is like DK Metcalf-like, in my opinion. So it's like, but the difference is DK Metcalf had good hands, could play the ball. He was more of a natural receiver. And, I've heard people say Nick Harbor is probably going to be maybe best sliding inside at tight end. And I kind of maybe agree with that one if he's going to be the willing blocker, because I don't want him to get Kyle Pitts, where he's just a big receiver they're putting on the line, putting that tight end, and it's a bad match. But he's one that if he gets more play time, more practice at receiver, maybe he starts to look a little more natural. And then just with his physical ability, it's next to none.
I feel like with his size as well, that you mentioned the blocking there. Even as a wide receiver, there's times that I'm watching and I want to see more. I want to see the drive to really push through and kind of make big plays in the run game, create gaps for people. It seems very reactive, which is maybe just, again, needing more work to familiarise himself with the demands of the position, potentially, rather than it being a determination thing or a character thing. Because you do see some flashes where it can do it. And again, it's the same as with the production. You just want to see a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So was Ashton Hawkins on the watch list?
I don't know.
We had a Baylor. Let's see. Now I got to remember. Eric.
We did.
Is Eric McAllister TCU or Baylor?
No, he's TCU. Joshua Cameron is Baylor.
Joshua Cameron. Thank you.
I have him on my tier list. He's actually in that same bucket as Nick Harbor, where there's things I like about his game, but I would like he needs to. I think he's limited as a player. I think his role is limited. And actually, of all my players, he's the only one that I actually wrote down a comp of who he kind of reminds me of, which was, I'm sure y'all remember Greg Little out of North Carolina. He's 6'1". Cameron's 6'1", 218. He looks like a running back out there. He's strong. He's good after the catch. He has good deep speed. He returns kicks for him. But I thought he was very, very lacking in the route running department overall, other than, go balls, deep balls, crossers. And he's not explosive in a short area. He's more of a build-up athlete. But he really reminded me of Greg Little, of a receiver that looks like a running back and he looks like a running back that's out there at wide receiver.
That's fair. I was a little bit higher on him. I thought that his work on slants and, as you say, the go routes as well.
His go route game was good.
Yeah, I think that whether it's he needs to find a lane, I suppose. Whether it's he wants to be the deep guy or if he wants to be the kind of possession receiver, because I think he has got the potential to do that. He's got.
I do too. I think he does good on the deep stuff. He does good on the quick game stuff. Is just, where does he fall? Which one is he going to fall into, and is he going to focus on? Yeah,
I think that's absolutely fair. Yeah, I was wondering as well. Did you have any kind of Hakeem Williams or in that tier as well?
No, I didn't. I didn't have Hakeem Williams in that tier, but you can go and talk about him.
Yeah, so he was one I didn't love that much. He's got all the physical tools, and also playing at Florida State. He's moved to Colorado, and hopefully that can help him, make real strides forward. But again, it's the same as the Nick Harbor stuff. I just want to see so much more. It kind of disappeared for long periods, and you're like, when you've got that size, the athletic ability, you need to be available for your quarterback. You need to be, whether it's the security blanket or, kind of given the X factor. I feel like it lacking a bit in both, other than just one or two key moments, which was disappointing because, again, you can see there's something there, but it needs to build on it, I think, if he's going to be drafted.
Yeah. The main one I wanted to talk about there's something there, and I want to see what happens, because I don't see people talking about him at all, and that's Noah Thomas at Georgia, who's coming over from A&M. I've seen now A&M is one team I've seen a lot play. Most of my family graduated from A&M, both sides of the family, so I got to watch a lot of A&M football. I don't know why they didn't get this guy the ball more. I'll be honest. I thought, like, every time I watched him, I'm like, this dude is one of your best weapons on the field. He's like, what, 6'5", 6'4". He's a slender build. But I don't think he's a slender build, but in my opinion, he doesn't play like the way he looks. I thought his hands were were good. I think his body control is good. And for being a slender player, I thought his yards after catch was actually impressive at times, where he's shucking tackles, making guys miss, and he has speed. He can get up and go. he just has inexperience, and he's slender, but he fights well for that build. And I'm hoping, I can't even think of what receivers recently have come in A&M had a lot of success. I mean, they all leave. I mean, you see him leave, you saw Evan Stewart leave, and I'm hoping at Georgia he gets one of those main roles and just really shows what he could do. Because I personally think he's one of the more talented receivers in the country, but A&M, I felt like he wasn't just given a whole lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I've also liked him and think that there's, as you say, there's so much to work with there. Yes. You've got the size, but also the change of direction for a guy that big is really, really, really nice. He can kind of, you see some people kind of be quite slow in and out of their breaks and stuff when they're, as you say, 6'5". But so he's one that I suppose another year of development, and especially like I was talking about with Bryce Lance as well, like moving system, he could potentially add something to his game that wasn't there beforehand. So I'm really excited to see what he can bring this year.
Yeah, I like him. Like you said, his change of direction of that size and build is surprising. He's able to sink his hips more than most 6'5" guys can to make that lateral movement. Most 6'5" guys aren't able to sink and move like he is.
So we have a decent quarterback class, at least decent relative to last year, coming out. And I want to point out, LSU has, I think on the watch list I sent, it hit 3 receivers, and we have soon discovered a 4th. Did Chris Hilton ever make it into the watch list for you guys? LSU.
I don't think I watched him.
I don't think I had Chris Hilton either. Wasn't on the list.
Some LSU guys.
LSU has Aaron Anderson, Nick Anderson, Barry, and Brown, right? So what did you think of those 3?
It's a nice mix across the 3 of them. You've got, kind of your big-bodied receiver and Nick Anderson, obviously, who's, he does the hard work. He's a decent run blocker, not amazing for his size, I think, but he does the work. And again, like we were saying earlier, he's got the kind of long strides and can really challenge you vertically if if he's allowed to. I think sometimes at Oklahoma, I would have liked to see him used slightly differently, potentially. But I think there's definitely something to work with. I think personally, I had Aaron Anderson rated the most highly out of those 3. I think that he's really electric at the slot position. There's it's a crowded slot class, but I think that he looked, the acceleration was really, really good, and decent hands, and also the size is obviously a concern as well. At 5'8", the NFL feels like it's often moving towards a slightly bigger power slot type league. But so I think that even if it's just catch radius, that's something that he will always struggle with. But I think that there's a lot of good to work with there.
Yeah, I like them both, but they're very different. I personally like Nick Anderson a little more, but that is with the caveat that his injuries don't pull back what he's shown at Oklahoma. Oklahoma. Because I mean he's big and he showed some juice at Oklahoma with and he showed juice. He could catch the ball well. I thought most of his routes at Oklahoma that he succeeded on were more linear routes that didn't ask him to really sink and move sideways, move lateral. But I think there's a lot of potential there. He's another name that's there's potential here. I want to see what happens next year. And Aaron Anderson, I like, positives. He's very quick. I think his hands are pretty solid. I think he's a gritty player. Like he's tough. Like he's hard for defenders to kind of wrangle and get down to the ground sometimes. But I wonder about will he ever be a threat, downfield? And is he really going to be typecast? Like, he may just get typecast as the short gadgety guy, which is fine, but that's just maybe what he's going to have to be.
Chris Hilton. So we did an LSU podcast where we just covered every draft eligible player from LSU. And we had an LSU podcaster that joined us. and that would be Noah Tingle, I believe was the name of the podcaster. But one of the things he was pointing out is he said Chris Hilton should be on your list. So I believe he's a redshirt senior. He's probably the best blocking wide receiver of the four. So between, we're not going to ask Aaron Anderson or Barry and Brown to move to block, right? That's not how those guys would be used. So Chris Hilton has that late round vibe of you're going to be able to get a wide receiver that will be able to block for you and play special teams. Whereas we may have some question marks on the Nick Andersons, the Aaron Andersons, and the Barry and Browns. So here's a question for you. Which of these, between Zachariah Branch and Aaron Anderson, which one's your favorite slot receiver? Which one do you prefer?
That's an easy answer for me.
Tell me how easy, Tel.
I think it's easily Zachariah Branch, personally. That's just my opinion. I think my opinion of those USC receivers from last year is going to be very different than consensus, I'll be honest.
I think I actually might be on that train with you as well, to be fair, with the USC guys as a whole. I don't have Branch as highly as two others that he played beside at USC. But I think that, again, the worst case scenario there is that you get a good returner, a guy who can come out the field, use him in the screen game, use him on jet sweeps potentially as well. There's always going to be value for just an incredible electric runner like that. And he has nice enough hands as well, that he's not just a gadget guy. But I think, having that as your floor and then being able to build the route running stuff and ball tracking on top of that is always a good place to start.
And Peter, receivers do you like better than Zachariah Branch?
So for me, I have Makai Lemon as my. I've not necessarily ranked out all of my receivers yet, but for me, he's right up there in the top 2 or 3 in the class. I think he's an excellent slot guy. He's, like we're saying with Aaron Anderson as well, he's not got much size, but he's feisty in the run game, works very hard there. Really, really good hands and ball tracking down the field as well. Wriggly after the catch, and particularly strong finding a bit of space over the middle of the field. Kind of the quarterback's best friend type thing. If it plays kind of falls off schedule, then he will find a soft spot in the zones and manage to get himself open, which I think is a massive advantage to have. And again, he's also proven that he can be very useful in the return game as well, just as an extra little added bonus, I suppose, as well.
If I'm being honest, Lemon's probably the guy I'm the farthest from on consensus. I am like, I love Lemon as a player, but I think he's very limited as an overall athlete. Because some of my favorite players, I'm a Bucks guy, like Chris Godwin. I mean, runs great routes, blocks in the run game, great, but he's like also a 4-4 guy. My thing with Lim is I personally think he's limited athletically. And I like a lot that he does, but like I'm worried, like, is he gonna end up like the guy at Houston, the backup slot at Houston. Oh my gosh, what's his name?
Houston Texans.
Yeah, the Texans.
So not Tank, but the player behind Tank Tel.
Mechie.
Okay.
I'm worried he's going to be John Mechie. He's going to get the NFL. He's just not going to be athletic enough to really demand play time. But he's going to be a guy that when he's in, he's going to do perfectly fine. And he can maybe get mixed in the return game, like you said. But I'm really worried that he's not going to have enough overall athleticism to really push to be like a first round guy. That really worries me. And like I know he's a lot of people's like number 1 or top 5 receiver. He's on most boards, but I watch him and positives for me is I think he's a great route runner. I think he has great hands. I think he's a feisty player, but I think he's smaller. I don't think he's great after the catch all the time. I think sometimes he goes down a little too easy. But the hands of the route running are some of my favorite things you can have as a player. So I'm hoping he does end up being very good. And if he does, then he'd probably be a player that I really enjoy to watch at the NFL level. I'm not there athletically, and that really gets to me because I'm always a guy that's like, give me the routes and the hands before the athleticism. But I think it personally, I think it can be a detriment at times.
It's definitely the athletic profile. I think is fair to say is the biggest weakness there, because even as you say, of course he is small, but if there was slightly better long speed, then I think he'd be clearly far and away, right up in the top tier. I still have him up there, but I can absolutely see the argument that the athletic profile holds him back slightly there. Yeah. I also have Jacoby Lane right up there as well. Kind of the opposite, I suppose, a bit big body, kind of a proper X receiver. Is such a great threat in the red zone as well. Was at 12 touchdowns last season, and he can just really go up and it can go up and get it. I would like to see him do that more. Kind of outside the red zone, just in general. He's got the size, so I'd like to see him offer the option to his quarterback to throw it up there, go up and get it, and kind of come down with a nice catch.
Yeah, Jacoby Lane was he was what I would consider a surprise for me. I didn't watch any USC football. Playing over all the way in California, that's real late at night for me, and I turned that film on, and I mean, 6'4", ball skills, fast. I think he has good lateral movement for that size. He's a slender player, and I think that affects his play a lot. I think his play strength is not where it needs to be, and he does not really break tackles. They get their hands on him, he's kind of down. But I think as a X style receiver, there's a lot there.
Definitely, I think as well. I just give a quick wee mention as well to Juice Robinson. I don't think he's in the same sort of tier as these guys, but he's another one that 6'6", well over 200 pounds. I'm interested to see how he goes at Florida State. If he has a really good season, then maybe he becomes someone that teams go, okay, we can work out how we want to use him. At the moment, I think he's a slight way away from that. He's not got the kind of route running skills yet that you'd want, and potentially it could even look to move inside to tight ends. I suppose he's got the size, and he is determined and physical in the run game. But I think that would also be a pretty long process for him there as well.
Receivers, do you have higher than Zachariah Branch?
What was it? I didn't hear the first part.
What slot receivers do you have higher than Zachariah Branch?
Oh, me?
Yes.
The true slot only is Eric Rivers.
It's the only one.
I mean, unless you're going to go with a bigger slot player, that can but that's a totally different kind of animal for me. I have Eric Rivers as the only slot style smaller receiver I have. That's the only one I have in front of Zachariah Branch.
Oh, okay. So you might be on that Zachariah Branch hype train. I've heard the reports, and I like when I hear about the player, but my understanding is there has to be a little bit more actual receiving for him to be a top 100 pick.
And he was another one like Jacoby Lane. I didn't watch a lot of USC, so I didn't know what I was coming in to watch, and I was surprised. I mean, it surprised me how just his speed and quickness. I mean, it really just pops off at what he can do. It pops off quick. And I guess I'm a guy that's starting to really lean in towards that athleticism in receivers, which I used to not be. I used to very much just hammer down on, can you catch a football? And then let's build on what you can do after that. And which I still am. I if you can't catch the football, I'm not gonna if you're bad at catching the football, I'm not gonna like you that much. I don't think any of these guys are actually bad at catching football, though. Yeah.
One player that hasn't been mentioned yet, believe that he should be picked 32 to the Buffalo Bills in this draft, is wide receiver Antonio Williams from Clemson. So had you seen Antonio Williams before this draft cycle, and what were your impressions, Tel?
I have. I like Antonio Williams a good bit. I like him. I know another Clemson receiver that gets brought up is Westco, and I personally think he's considerably better than Westco. I like Antonio Williams. I think he is someone that should be in the conversation for one of the top receivers in this draft.
How about you, Peter?
I liked him, not quite as high on him as that. I didn't have maybe a first round grade on him. I suppose I don't tend to go with grades like that at the moment. But there's plenty to work with there. He's got the kind of change of direction skills, really good feet and acceleration. I do think his hands maybe need some work. I don't think, as you said, there's nobody here who can't catch the ball. But there's some guys in this class that drops are the main issue that they need to tidy up. And I think that the kind of intermediate level route running for Antonio Williams could also do with kind of improving. That's kind of the next step that I'd like to see there. Because again, in the short stuff, he is very, very good, and also he does have the kind of running style that means that defenders have to be wary of him going deep as well.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we pause? We've been going here for 35 plus minutes, so that was really good. That was just, and for anybody listening, there was no script. Right before we went live, they were like, well, what should we talk about? And I said, I think we'll figure it out once we go live. But I thought that conversation turned out. But let's take a deep breath. Peter, and I think we talked about this backstage, but Tel and Peter were introduced to the draft professors last draft cycle. They're in the draft professor group chat, and it's cool to see you on the other side of the camera. But Peter, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody? Tell them about all of the different football work that you do, and just highlight yourself for a minute or two.
Yeah, so I've kind of got a background in journalism, so I've done some sports writing for the Join the Huddle UK, and I'm a Seattle Seahawks writer for them, and I have been for approaching a year or so. So looking forward to this season starting, and I'll get more stuff out there. And a new development for me in the footballing world is that I've joined Pro Football Focus as a part-time data collector as well. So that's something else that's going to be exciting and a new development this season. And all my articles for the Huddle UK you can get at my Twitter at Peter Quinn 1997.
I'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I actually coach football. I coach in Texas at high school level, and when it comes to the draft and college world, NFL world, I've just been following the draft and writing and doing my own reports for 10 years now. I haven't pursued that world really hard as a career. It's something I do every year. I enjoy it. I have some friends that do it that are in that world. But I've just, I really love coaching football, but I don't think I've missed a draft in the past, 15, 16 years. I think I've seen every single draft live. I do my own reports on players. I'll do my own top big boards every year just for me, and I'll share it with my friends and just to go back. And it's something I really enjoy. I just never ventured into that career world. It's something I would love to do. I just figuring out how to do that while having my job and having, life happening is not easy.
Doing this on the side is both a lot of fun and a lot of work.
Yes.
but it keeps me busy. It keeps me entertained. I'm the same way as you. I have another job, and then this is what I do every night, right? This is my hobby. So, but it also keeps me out of trouble. So you can follow the channel NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. It is the same on X as it is on YouTube. What you get is daily draft content. So every day we have a different podcast. So Sunday it was corners. Yesterday was running backs. Today it's wide receivers. Tomorrow we're covering likely 2026 day 1 and 2 quarterbacks. Thursday we have an agent coming on the station. So one of the things that I have learned from talking with 4 agents this summer scouting cycle is that agents want to know who are players 101 to 300 because that's where they make their money, right? Because there's more bonuses to negotiate or guarantees in the contract to negotiate, which is different. Like a first round pick, everything is slated. Second round pick, for the most part, everything is slated. They were saying that they're trying to find who should they be contacting as prospective clients that are essentially day 3 players. And so one of those agents, Michael Storm's coming on the podcast on Thursday. In addition to that, on Friday, we are covering the top 10 players in the SEC. And then Saturday morning, we're doing a very similar podcast on the defensive line class. And then I think Sunday, we're doing a top 50 board. So every day, there's something. So just go to YouTube, hit that subscribe, and you'll be notified. We go live every day. That being said, we're still covering wide receivers. And one of the questions that I have is you were looking at the receiver list, did you like underclassmen more than you liked seniors? Is it mixed?
I liked the underclassmen this year. A lot of my kind of top tier prospects are juniors or redshirt juniors potentially as well. I don't know about you, Tel. How did yours play out?
Yeah, I would say majority of my top guys are mostly young. But then there's some old guys sprinkled in there that I really like. But yeah, I mean, guys like, Eric Rivers is a junior. Jordan Tyson is a junior, which we haven't mentioned him, and he's I think he's wide receiver 1 right now, personally. And then Carnell Tate is a young player. I think there's a lot of young. I think towards the top, I think it's all young guys, but there's a lot of seniors I like. A lot of them are in my tier of they're good, but I think there's a role that they're stuck in. They're not going to.
Who are your top seniors, Tel?
My top seniors. All right, let me check. Let's check.
We need to filibuster.
Yeah. Let me pull it up. Let me pull that up because I don't have.
Peter, what was your impression of underclassmen versus seniors while Tel's looking up his top seniors?
Yeah, I'm trying to have a look just to check my top senior. I kind of had Elijah Sarrett up quite high, Indiana. He's up there as one of my top seniors.
Elijah Sarrett. He's one of my top guys.
Yep.
Maybe I was wrong on this one. Maybe I'm wrong on. There's some. Like Jordan Tyson is a senior, so like that was one I was thinking he was a junior. He is a senior. He's my top senior. Then it's like Elijah Sarrett is up there. Is there anyone that you were particularly high on, Peter, compared to consensus? Like you were like a little confused at where he was being ranked?
Not too many, to be fair. I thought that I liked CJ Daniels a little more than I think some had. Again, he's got the physical abilities. Not a crisp enough route runner yet, but He was one that I'd not seen mentioned too much at all. I know he's a 6-year player, I think, so that maybe factors in as well, that he'll be an older prospect there. But he can, he's kind of got a nice head fake, kind of drop the shoulder, send the defender the wrong way, which I always like in a kind of bigger, well-built player. But so he was one that I was probably slightly higher on than consensus, I think. And also I had, I don't know if this is, I don't know how rare this is, but the Denzel Boston I had right up there at the very, very top of my class. I had him and Lemon were my two favourites in the class at the moment. I think that, again, there's so much to work with there against a guy 6'4", runs really well, and he always seems to know exactly where to be. That makes the quarterback's job so much easier as well. Kind of runs nice routes at all levels, and he's not electric in his pace, but he can still test you downfield if needed. So I really liked him when I was watching. I think most people are fairly high on him. I think I had him higher than I've usually seen him.
Yeah, I like Denzel Boston. I don't have him that high, but I like him. I've seen some people have him high, some people have him not quite too high, but I like him. I mean, I think he's big. I think he's a true X wide receiver, in my opinion. Like, the dude, he's going to get to the spot he needs to be. He's going to catch the ball. He's going to be someone the receiver's probably going to love, or the quarterback. The one that I know I've mentioned once in the chat, and because someone was asking about him, I'm not sure it was Deshaun Stribling. That's a guy that I'm like, okay, like, I really want to see what Ole Miss does with him.
Definitely.
Deshaun Stribling was, I mean, when I watched the film, I'm like, okay, personally, I thought the guy popped. I thought the guy had good size. He's pretty cut, muscular for that build. He's explosive. He's really sudden, straight or sideways. I mean, he can just get up and move. And then I think that he's bigger, and I think he plays to that strength. I mean, I think he catches the ball. I think he's a pain to get down. I think he's fast, but he's old. He's going on his third year. And I like him a lot. He's a guy that I'm like, okay, like at Ole Miss, I could see him taking a big leap on the consensus board. But I'll be honest, I really hope I don't get hit with another Brian Edwards. And just a guy that just isn't going to separate enough at the next level. He's going to go out there and make like one preseason play like he's a monstrosity, and then just never really puts it all together.
I also like Stribling, and again, I think it's more projected, as you say, on what he can do this year.
Yes.
But again, there's so much there. Brilliant catch radius, really physical at the catch point, and carrying through contact as well to get extra yards. And also, I quite liked his release package for such a big, powerful guy. Yeah. I thought he can wrong foot defenders at the line. I'd like to see him do it a little more at the kind of the break point in his routes some of the time, but. Yeah, I think that there's again, he's one that I think will rise up people's boards big time this year.
That was one of my points when I talk about his suddenness is like at the line of scrimmage, coming off of it. Sometimes he just blows past them, and like you don't expect it from someone built like he's built. I mean, he just blows past people, and he's definitely someone I think he has all the tools to be a very highly ranked receiver in this class if he can just kind of put it all together.
Definitely,
and it's podcast. You are the first two people I have heard talk about Deshaun Stribling this draft cycle. That's exactly why we're here, everybody. So if he breaks out, you heard it here first. I'm just saying.
If he flops, then you didn't.
No, you didn't.
Podcast just goes into the abyss of the internet.
Pull my quote, there's another Brian Edwards.
We're all good. But at the same time, if he hits, we come back and we pound the table and we show the timestamp of being August 5th, 2025. Because what's interesting there is both of you had the same assessment on the player. Right? And to the best of my knowledge, Peter and Tel, you two have not met prior to today.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
Yeah. So there wasn't any dialogue or production prep for that. That was just authentic takes from smart people.
A player that I watched that I had actually heard of, but it was like 3 years ago when I first heard his name, and I completely forgot about him because he kind of disappeared with injuries and stuff. And then I go back and watch the film, and I'm like, okay, like there is a really good football player here if the injuries haven't taken over, and that's DeCorian Clark from UTSA. I mean, he heck, I think he's going to be a 6-year player, I would think. Let me make sure. He may be worse than that. Oh no, he's gonna be a 7th-year player. Let's see. The past 2 years, he's played 2 games and then 2 games, but the 2 years prior than that, his true junior and true senior year, he had 750 yards and 740 yards, and then he stayed for 1 extra year because of COVID and all that, and then he got hurt, so he stayed again and got hurt again. But I remember I looked at him. I said, I definitely heard of this player because it was back. I think he was running around with Franklin and that crew when they had those other 2 receivers that were pretty good that all ended up transferring out. And he's big. He's listed at 6'3", 220. He looks it. And he definitely looks 220. He may be more 6'2", but he's a big, thick guy. And his play strength is there with that size, and he catches the ball. And he is explosive. But the injuries are bad, and he's going to be a very old prospect. The only reason I'm kind of talking about him is because, unlike some old prospects, he wasn't like a raw receiver. He was a true – he looked like an actual dude before the injuries took over. And, he may not do anything. He may barely play. But his 2022 film – and 21 film are it's pretty good.
I'll have to make that my next assignment, along with Chris Hilton watching in detail. That's one thing. My scouting's kind of been 23 and 24 based, so that would be good to kind of go back and have a look and see what he can bring.
Yeah, we have that conversation on some of the other podcasts too about what is the value of 2023 film when you're evaluating somebody for the 2026 draft?
Yeah.
Right? Because the player is either 2 years younger, 2 years older, depending upon how you want to look at it. But if it's a grown 23 or 24-year-old man playing against a 19-year-old kid, you're going to expect the young adult to thrive.
Yes. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Clark is, if he comes back and he's healthy, he needs to be more than what he was in 23. He needs to be very dominant. Yeah. And if he is, then I fall back to the 23 tape and point at that and be like, he showed what he could be, and the injuries didn't take it from him. But injuries take a lot from us. So
it's similar to one guy that I was talking about as well was Trevor Pena, 6-year player. And he did really well at Syracuse, but again, with him being a 6-year prospect, he's moved to Penn State, and that's really exciting. I'm interested to see what he can do, at that level this year. But again, you hold him to the higher standard because he is a 6-year player. You hope, and don't get me wrong, he does seem like a really, kind of mature, intelligent player, who can provide a lot, particularly as a slot receiver.
Yeah.
I think you do hold those older prospects to a slightly higher standard.
Shoot off the names of 5 receivers and check my math. I believe they're all underclassmen. Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Jacoby Lane, Singleton, and Kevin Concepcion from Texas A&M. Those 5 guys all could just go back to school, correct?
I was about to bring up Concepcion. That's where I was going. I was gonna start talking about him because here's how I feel. I think he is what people think Mekhi Lemon is, and that's I think you put him in the slot, he's gonna catch the ball. I think he's going to be physical in the run game when asked to do it. especially if he gets to the NFL level, and that's what they're asking him to do. And I think he's much more dangerous with the ball in his hands than Lemon. Now, I don't think Concepcion is anything spectacular of an athlete. I don't think he's like a Blazer, and or anything like that. But he just doesn't get tackled. He doesn't go down. He catches the ball. He's strong. I think he's a very willing player. I think he is going to be good after the catch. In my opinion, I would prefer him in my slot than Mekhi Lemon, which I know is not a popular opinion. But he like exudes like big, tough, like a tough slot player.
He does. I think for me, I absolutely love the kind of his work and the potential that he has for as a guy after the catch. I think get the ball in his hands and just let him go. He will bounce tacklers off. He'll find gaps to wriggle through where you thought there were none. For me, what separates Lemon from him, I think, is the work before the catch. I feel like we've not seen it consistently enough yet to see that he's someone who can get open regularly. I think there's a lot to work with there, and he's in my top kind of 15 receivers. I think top 10, 15. I definitely like what I see, and I think that he's someone as well that I'm looking forward to see how he goes this season as well.
Yeah, I agree that before the catch, I think Lemon is a better player. But like I said earlier with Lemon, I think he's limited athletically, so I kind of fall back to I don't think any of them are man winners. In all honesty, I think Lemon's is gonna be better against the zone, but at the same time, so is Concepcion, in my opinion. And then after the catch is where it changes. Now, Lemon is better against zone as of right now. Like Lemon is better. Like he's gonna find that spot to sit. He's gonna find that's where to work on the drag routes. But I feel like that could come with Concepcion. Now, like I said earlier, he's going to Texas A&M, and I don't have a lot of faith in their receiving core ever making someone better. I'll be honest. But I don't know. He's a player I like. I think he's someone. I think at the end of the day, I think he's going to go late day 2, day 3. I wish he'd go earlier. I don't think he will. But I think he's someone that a team is going to get, and they're going to get someone that can play their slot and be a security blanket for the quarterback and can make plays with the ball in his hands.
Definitely.
I think Concepcion is Bill Sparks' wide receiver 1. So, so the reason I asked about just confirming where, let's say, the underclassmen were, so if you had to advise Concepcion, Singleton, Lane, Tate, or Tyson, and their choices are come out a year early, but maybe you're not a finished product, or come out the same year that Jeremiah Smith comes out.
So for me, that factors in big time for Cornell Tate. He was one that I had a bit of trouble trying to place, mainly because of Jeremiah Smith, but also, last season, you're looking at it, they've got Emeka Egbuka, they've got the run game featuring Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. He's quite far down the, don't get me wrong, I think he's a great player, but he was quite far down the list of priorities for opposing defences, which makes it a little bit difficult to kind of judge where he stands as a player. I think what is impressive though is that he's excelled so well he was probably the third wide receiver on that team when you consider that Smith and Egbuka were both absolutely excellent last season. I think that there's a lot to like with him. I think that maybe coming out a year before Jeremiah Smith might prove useful for him and avoid a kind of comparison effect. That when Smith does declare for the draft, it might. To be fair, I suppose it could elevate Tate's standing, but I think more likely it wouldn't end up being a great comparison, I suppose, for him.
Yeah. Tate's an interesting one because I think he's just kind of in a position where I don't think there's any way he's wide receiver 1 in either class, just because going into let's say he comes out this year, everyone's gonna fall back onto, well, he was not even the biggest threat on his team. He had the advantage of being the number 2, which I do think has merit that he's not having to have all the focus. But then if he waits next year, he's not going to go above Jeremiah Smith. So I think for Tate, it's if you have a good year, you just come out. Now with Jordan Tyson, I think if you have a good year, you come out because you may just be wide receiver 1. And he could stay. You could say he stays because their quarterback is young and he would have him again. But then you're going against Jeremiah Smith. So I think Tyson and Tate, if they have good years, should just come out. Who else was it? Concepcion.
Lane, Singleton, and Concepcion in that same.
So Lane, I don't know how I feel about Lane coming out. I think he has to make a big receiver because he may put up numbers with that USC room getting a little less crowded, but he has to change as a receiver or like improve. And then Singleton, I actually haven't even talked about Singleton and all that. He was one of the biggest surprises for me. I like him a lot. If he goes in and just dominates, I think he's at least a second rounder. He's just not the biggest guy in the world. But I thought his Georgia Tech tape was fun. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think that what struck me was just the low center of gravity. It looks like he burrows through tackles, which is, again, a great skill to have. And again, he's extremely versatile in terms of the usage that you can get him in on sweeps, get the ball in his hands. If I feel like there's some games that if he was struggling to kind of get the separation, get open for the quarterback, they would do that. They'd kind of run him on a screen, yes. They'd get him on a sweep, get the ball in his hands, and make sure that you're still finding a use for him because he is an excellent player. Yeah,
and that was one of my weaknesses I had down for him is that he seems like right now he can be at times just more of a gadget player. But I didn't see anything that was holding him back from being more than that. He's small, but we've seen small receivers succeed in the NFL. So I think he has the ability to be more than a gadget player, but we just got to see it happen.
Yep. I was a lot lower on, I was slightly lower on Jordan Tyson than consensus as well. I know that so many people have him wide receiver 1, and I think obviously it's well documented that drops can be a little bit of an issue there, but it was just the lack of kind of one real key defining trait for me. He's a extremely intelligent player, and he's kind of 7 to 8 out of 10 across the board. Mm-hmm. But I've seen so many kind of people in the draft community kind of having him miles clear as wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. I think that he's certainly in the conversation. I'd like to see another year. He's got a kind of great relationship with the quarterback, and that's fantastic. It's going to be good to see him this year. But I'd like to see something. Even if it is just cleaning up the drops, then I think you've got right across the board 8 out of 10. That's a guy who's going to contribute for you immediately. But just to for the top wide receiver in the class, I'd like to see something that excites me a bit more. In terms of kind of one of his traits, or his production is excellent, obviously, but just something to a wee bit of X factor. But I'm aware that I'm very much in the minority in that position.
Yeah, I understand that. Like, I can definitely see that side of him, and my thing with him, assuming he cleans up the drops, is like I think at worst you're getting like an elite wide receiver 2. With someone that can be a wide receiver 1. And there's not, and like, some people are like, why would you draft a wide receiver 2, super early? But there are elite wide receivers too in this NFL. You're going to tell me you wouldn't take them in the top 15 pick. You do the draft over and you wouldn't take like a Devontae Smith. You wouldn't take a Chris Godwin, those types.
Absolutely, I completely appreciate that, and I think especially when there's so much projection. I know it's in a very early stage; we still have a whole season to go, but there's a lot of projection with so many of the wide receiver prospects. He's one that I think you do know what you're getting, so I think that maybe does factor in a lot as well. So completely understand that.
Wide receiver 2 comment. So one aspect would be a wide receiver 2 is still a starting wide receiver. Right? You're drafting a starter. That's important. Draft starters and you keep your job. If you're a GM, draft starters, keep your job. So 1 point. Second point is that if we're able to identify right now that a player is a wide receiver 2, that means we've identified a good floor for the player. So you can draft that player for the floor where you may see other players where we think the ceiling is higher, where they could be a wide receiver 1, but wide receiver is a position that, you see first and second round busts at wide receiver more than you see those at a lot of other positions.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, and there's teams, in my opinion, that could easily justify, taking Tyson, even though they have a good receiver. I mean, how would one critique, let's say, next year comes around, the draft comes around, the Panthers are back in the top 15. Leggett never took a leap. All their other receivers are old, and let's say Bryce Young is still was good, had a good year. How do you not, if you need a wide receiver 2 to go with Ted, let's say T-Mac is good, then I don't see how you could criticize them taking Jordan Tyson if, unless they had another glaring giant need.
Be careful with the Matt Millen theory of draft a wide receiver in round 1 every year.
Oh yeah, I mean, as a Bucs fan, I may have to just deal with it because we just took Igbokwe as wide receiver 3, as our wide receiver 3 in the first round. But at the same time, he was my wide receiver 1 in the draft, so I wasn't going to say a word.
Yep. So I'm going to drop a couple of names that were added to our watch list since. We'll say, let's assume that I emailed the list to you in May. I don't know when I sent it, but here's receivers that have been added since. Mikey Matthews from UCLA, Griffin Wild from Northwestern, Skylar Bell from UConn, Shamar Porter from UConn, Hakeem Williams from Colorado, Hafeel Schlock from Hawaii, Devontae Ross from Penn State, Kobe Prentice from Baylor, Nathan Leacock from Tennessee, Dylan Bell from Georgia was not on the original list that I sent you. Vinny Anthony from Wisconsin, Jamari Macklin from Kentucky.
I watched him.
What did you think?
I didn't.
He's just a guy right now?
Yeah, he's just a guy. He's in my, he'd be in my, not really on my radar right now. He's a nice player for Kentucky. For college football, he's a nice player. I don't personally, I can see him becoming something. He's another receiver where I could see him getting the NFL and sticking on a team. I think, play special teams, get in the game, be reliable, be a smart, tough player. But I'm not someone I'm really focused in on right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I was much the same with him. And also, you mentioned Dylan Bell. He's one that I think that you said it correctly. He's a good Georgia player, potentially. He could contribute this season. But there's so many people who are, kind of really good, kind of electric pace, nice change of direction, but, a lot to develop in terms of the route running and learning to play wide receiver effectively. And also we mentioned Hakeem Williams as well earlier. He was one that adds. I think that there's some, I do think there is something there for him. But I'm interested to see what steps he takes this year. And Ashlock as well for Hawaii. I think he's he's an interesting player because he's going to get used in a lot of different ways there at Hawaii, and I like his deep ball tracking, and is a fine but not exceptional athlete. I think that he maybe would need to, he would need to be an exceptional athlete to manage to make the grade and get teams' attention, NFL teams' attention. But again, another good year. He's been good the last 2 years, so another good year, and he's in with a chance, I suppose.
Another receiver that I know is brought up towards the top of this class, I guess. I know he has fans that I'm pretty low on, is Evan Stewart from Oregon. I see the speed and I see the explosion and I see him make some crazy catches sometimes. But, I mean, he's small. He plays small. And I don't see him working across the middle of the field very often. He just seems like such a perimeter player to me. And I don't know if he can live on the perimeter while also being like just that weak, like just lacking a strength.
I think it'll be interesting to see with him as well if he's done enough that teams are going to be keen on him. Despite, I mean, it seems like it's going to be a really long-term injury that he's picked up. Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to be the whole season. I think potentially he's going to miss here. That's a risk for teams, and based on his body of work so far, I think you've got a lot of people in this class who are maybe safer bets at this stage. You don't know who's going to come back from this injury. And I quite liked him. I saw I saw the positives there. I didn't have him rated that highly in terms of the class, but I think that is a bit of a risk for a team to take. He's not got the kind of constant body of work production, and you're not entirely sure what you're getting there. I think this year would have been a good chance for him to take a leap forward, but I feel for him that that's been taken away.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to kind of summarize the podcast. So here's what let's say how Draft Professor operates and what's going on, right? So we compile our watch list, and we do that in May and June. And, there's a couple of key people like Randall Slifer, Bill Sparks, Anthony Russo, Brian Maffey, those four guys, plus Dale from Bengals and Brews. I get their boards, and here's the guys that we should be watching. So then, starting in October, we take that watch list and we dissect it 8 players per podcast. So in the case of wide receivers, the watch list that was sent to Peter and Tel, we're going to go through 8 players and we're going to update them starting in October. So we start with the day 3 guys, meaning did any of the day 3 guys, any of the guys that are probably in that group that Tel was describing of like they need to make a jump, we're going to start to look in October, have they made a jump? And we cover 8 players at a time, and we're going to have 10 podcasts. So in the end, so with wide receiver, I think we're doing 9. So that means that we're going to be evaluating 72 wide receivers. You will hear the analysis live on the air. One of the podcasts will be on Tuesdays with Randall and Andy. There will be another group doing wide receivers on Wednesdays, and that's going to be Bill and Durst. And they're each taking the same list, but they don't get the same players the same week. And the idea is, did any of the players make a jump? And the goal is for this podcast to tell you that player is going in round 2. So last year, we did it with Jack Bash. We knew Jack Bash was going in round 2 last year, right around Halloween. We're like, if you look at the film, he's not getting out of day 2, right? That kind of thing. So we're going to be doing that with every position. But the whole premise of this podcast was I wanted somebody that didn't help create the list to tell me what the list was like. Right? This is like you're getting your second opinion or your outside opinion. I thought this went really well, guys.
Yeah, it's been great fun. And again, I've got 2 new names to add to my list as well to have a watch through as well. So I'll get on that as well.
Yeah. It's been good.
for you on the podcast. Hope you can come back. Ooh, okay. Yeah, JPC. See, now we're talking. What is the best album on my wall there? Okay, so in some ways it's easy, but I'm gonna take the cop out because there's more than one answer. But the best 5 albums ever made are Foreigner 4, Queensryche Operation Mindcrime, Van Halen 5150, Van Halen Fair Warning. Ooh. Well, those are 4 really good ones. And then there's a couple of Taylor Swifts up there that I like too. I won't claim to be a Swiftie, but I do like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I feel like I fall into that camp as well. I wouldn't. I feel like I would be rejected by the Swifties, but I will absolutely. I enjoy Taylor Swift's music.
Yeah.
Yes, and my true story with Taylor Swift, right? So she did something called CMT Crossroads, and this was a decade ago, and she did it with Def Leppard. So I'm on it. I'm watching because I'm a huge Def Leppard fan. I had no idea who Taylor Swift was. Now, she was already famous at that time. I just had no idea who she was because I don't typically listen to that style of music. But I'm like, oh my God, this girl has talent. So I became a huge fan. Taylor Swift sang a Def Leppard song so good that I didn't even know that Def Leppard was the original singer of the song.
Nice.
So yeah, that woman has a lot of talent. But yeah, so Lilia, it's good to see you stop by. Hi. So JPC, I hope you like that, but we can do a JPC every single time you stop by. We can do a music take. You can pick a CD out and we can talk about it. There is a story about every CD that's on that wall back there. So I've got more than enough podcasts to tell my stories. So, but that being said, we are 75 minutes in. For Peter, for Tel, for the 85 podcasters at the Draft Professor, myself, guys, I know that you guys haven't podcasted on the channel much, but it's awesome to have you in the group chat. And even if this is your little contribution for the year, we'll come back. Let's do this again next year. But if we can podcast sooner, I would love to have you on again. This was you guys without knowing what was going to happen when we went live. You guys knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah,
this has been great fun. More than happy to come back. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I would come back. It was a lot of fun. I mean,
yep.
I could ramble.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow.